everyone for being here on this Monday night. And tonight we are talking about all things mind and body and in various different formats. So be ready to have your mind just in sync with your body, with all that's right in the world. And so we're going to kick it off, and Susan and I are going to talk a little bit about the mind part of your business. So, we're noticing in ourselves and in a lot of you that we talk to that we have these expectations of ourselves that maybe sometimes we don't feel like we're um living up to, or we're coming across some challenges, like maybe a customer dropping off, maybe somebody, being frustrated the mind body is not working the way they thought it was going to, or maybe they've talked to so many people and they're still not a pro 10 yet, right? Like we have all of these ideas in our mind, and expectations about the way that we want things to go. And we often attach a lot of emotion to those expectations. And what that does is often places us on this roller coaster that sometimes is scary, sometimes we just want to jump off, or sometimes we're like, that was so fun. Oh my gosh. Why isn't every day like that? Right? So we're really attaching a lot of emotion to the ups and downs of our business. Now, in my family, sports are a big thing. And there's a lot of emotion that goes with every single game, every single training, every up and down of the, doing good, doing bad, missed that shot, made a mistake, all of these things. And I wanted to show you guys a little video that I found. Um, just a little motivational video. Hopefully you guys will like it. But it does it's speaking to sports, but I think really sports and business are pretty much the exact same thing. They're life, right? So let me see if I can get this. Where's the screen?
Shoulda, shoulda. You got to stop living in the past. You can't unscramble eggs. Let it go. And you can't be consumed with the future. So if we're not struggling with the past and those shouldas, the next person is you're struggling with the future. And what happens is it paralyzes. There's nothing wrong with you having fear. There's something wrong with fear having you. And what happens is it paralyzes you when you're thinking, what if? You know? What if I buy in? What if I do all I'm supposed to do and it still doesn't turn out? What if I don't have the senior year or the freshman year that I'm hoping to have? What if things don't work out like I want them to? And what happens is you get consumed with that. My challenge to us as we deal with our headspace and being unshakable there, I want you to change all your what ifs to even ifs. I'll say it again. We're changing all our what ifs to what? Even ifs. What does that mean? Even if I don't start. Even if I don't lead the league in rushing. Even if they don't call my name. Even if I make a mistake and I fall short, I won't give up. I won't give out. I won't give in. I will continue to respond victoriously. I've got to keep my mind right.
So is there anybody on
Nice.
here that can relate to maybe a time where you said, oh, I should have done that with that person. I wish I had said the right thing. Oh, man. Or looking to the future. Wow, this consultant's going to be amazing. they're gonna be the one, right? And we put all those eggs in the basket, and then we hit a place maybe where we're in fear, and then we're afraid to take more action. I don't know, I've been there. Can anybody relate to that?
It
Well,
took me,
uh,
oh, go ahead.
I was going to say it gets, I guess fear is a good word. I didn't really think about it like that, but I've got like, I mean, I'm in a cell club, so I meet a lot of people, and they ask me, "Oh, what is it that you're about and what you say?" And I get so into it, and they hype me up that they're gonna want to do it, and I send them all this stuff, and then nothing. And I guess the fear is finding out why not, and well, oh, they're not ready, or it's hard, It's like so, it's like now like I'm afraid to talk about it to people. I'm afraid that like when I see them, I'm afraid to bring it up because I don't want them to think that that's all I'm gonna be wanting to see them for is because I want them to buy my stuff. You know what I mean? So I guess I do have. I didn't think about it as fear, but yeah, that is now that I think about it, it's a big fear that I have.
I think that's so common, Linda, and I know a lot of us feel like that. So I think that's maybe something that's a whole topic for a call is that specific
Mhm.
that specific
Right.
instance right there. Because I know we all go
Hmm.
through that. But when you look at it as fear, even though you may not necessarily attach to it as fear, if you kind of surrender to the fact that, wow, I do have this emotional attachment to the outcome, it does change the way that you approach the next situation, right?
Hmm. Yes.
And so trying to figure out, okay, well, how can I be in a place of evaluation instead of judgment? So
Right.
if we're looking at it as I should have, or I could have, or gosh, I want to, but I don't know. All of those things we could say are coming from a place of judgment, and that will affect our decision making or our action taking. But if we can say, hey, let's evaluate the situation, let's evaluate the steps, let's evaluate like the different dialogue, and we take the emotion out of it, then we have a way to problem solve.
And what can I learn from this?
Yes.
Right.
And then we can also say what part is mine, what part is theirs. And
Hmm.
as Susan likes to say,
You
let them,
can't say what?
let them. Once we do our part,
Oh, let
then we
them. Yeah,
let
let
them
them. Well,
do their part.
this has been a huge process. Believe me, not one that I got to overnight. I'd say over years of being able to let go and let them.
Mm.
I've told somebody about the product. They were all excited. They wanted it. They needed it. They're the perfect person. They're gonna, they're gonna come on board. They're gonna whatever. And then they don't. And I always do the evaluation. Like, what did I do? Did I say too much? Did I say too little? Did I say the right thing? Did I say the wrong thing? But now honestly, it has taken me so long to be unattached to the outcome. And I still will say I have to catch myself sometimes, but it's so much easier. Have you read the Let Them theory yet?
Everyone needs to.
Talking
I
about?
just want to say that this is a process too, Linda. And maybe you kind of hold back yourself, your enthusiasm, and, put a monitor on your mouth, that you don't give them everything at the first thing. Don't
Mm.
you give them a little, and you say,
Yeah.
and we're starting a conversation about this, and then they don't respond or whatever, and I'll say, I'll be back with you because I've got lots more to share. You just
Right.
keep the door open and don't go full force vomiting on them right out of the gate.
Mhm.
Well, and that's where we can go through that step by
Governments.
step thing and saying, okay, what do we think? And what I'm gonna suggest for Susan that she was just saying was like, what did I say wrong? Like, let's change the language to, hey, how did I feel that that was received, what I said? Or what could I have, what were the options for what I could have said differently, you know, or where do I think that it got off course? So, you know, going step by step and taking ownership for your part, right? And evaluating that and testing out different things. That's the great thing, is once we're evaluating, then we can test out like, hey, if I go all out with my enthusiasm, but I don't actually word vomit on them, do I get a better response? You know, I'm going to test that out. Or do I get a better response when I'm like, you know what? This is so important. I want to talk to you about it later at a more important, you know, at a more concentrated time. You know, so just thinking of like, okay, there are all of these variables out there in the world and we can test them. And we don't have to feel like I'm going to bank everything on this one interaction or this one customer or this one consultant that I get. And we're going to get ourselves off the roller coaster. So I guess that was my goal, was for our mindset today, is how can we look at this not as be so attached to the results. So
And
yeah.
the results are not in. The results are never in, because lots of times, Linda, these people will call you back 2 years later and say, oh, Susan, you talked to me about this and sent me information, and now I know is really the right time.
Right.
So never judge yourself. Just kind of always open the door to how can I open the door to another communication?
Right.
Well, I'll get back to you with more info, and, you know,
Well,
just
I get a lot from people who say, "Oh, I'm already taking this and it works for me," or you know, stuff like that. And I just had a client who had tremors, and her doctor said it was probably from the stuff that she was taking, from the Light Vantage. Uh,
yeah.
you know, and I tried to reassure her, and she didn't want to hear it. So,
Yeah.
what am I going to do? She
Yeah.
was one of my better
Exactly.
customers,
That's
you know. But
Chrissy,
really it.
whatever.
Chrissy,
I
go.
have
Jump
I have
in.
suggestions. Okay, so number one, think of it this way: you're planting seeds, right? We're all
Yeah.
just farmers. We're planting seeds, and each seed sprouts at different times. I mean, just look at me and Susan. Like she planted seeds when, like what, 10 years ago, right?
That's right.
Oh wow.
That's right.
So, like that's a real thing. Now, back to your client, Linda, who's saying, "Oh, my doctor said this is causing it." Well, that's just a doctor who's not doesn't understand how this works, because it's not. We all know it's not. But this is what you can suggest to that individual, and which is going to be tough because people tend to trust their medical providers, right?
Right.
But you can say, hey, um, you know, number one, you can use me. Hey, I've got a friend who works in family practice. She uses this all the time in her people with neurological issues, in diabetics, in people with chronic immune dysfunction, all kinds of things. And she feels really comfortable telling her patients that, yeah, these are safe and effective, and they're not going to interfere with medications. So that's number one, use me. Okay.
Right.
Number two, what you can suggest to that individual is say, hey, I totally get where your doctor might be thinking that this is causing the problem. I think it's a great idea. Take a break from it for like a month and see what happens. And then go back on it a month later. If the tremors come back, yep, the doctor's right. This caused the tremors. If the tremors stay the same, they don't go away, you go back on it, nothing changes, this product didn't cause it.
Right. Well, that's where she's at now. The tremors, she stopped the product. It's been few months now, and she still has the tremors. So, but I will talk to her about going back on the product, because I mean, I do believe in it. And then I had somebody else tell me that she says to me, "Oh, good luck with your venture," and I just wanted to be like, I didn't even say anything. I just thought, okay, well, good luck with your life. I don't want to be mean, but right. But I mean, here I am trying to, but whatever. It's frustrating because it's people who I consider to be like my friends, and I know they could use this stuff because I know what it can do or what it does, and they just, I don't know. It's hard.
It
I
is.
It's
think
hard to
everybody,
It's
yeah.
a process, though. It is a
Yeah.
process, and it's
But you're right about the seed. I'm hoping that I, plant a seed in their brain,
And everybody's on their own timeline. Like, not everybody is going to embrace it wholeheartedly and say, "Oh, yes, I'm all in. Send me everything you have. And do you have more?"
Right.
I mean, that was
Yeah,
me,
that's
but
how I
Right.
am. That's
not
me. That's
everybody
me.
understands the science either.
Right.
And sometimes it's just sort of a slow simmer and it takes them a little while to come around and get there. Like I've
Mm,
got people that I've talked to like back in October that are coming and saying, "Hey, tell me a little bit more about this." Or like all of a sudden they pop up and they've ordered. Like, "Oh, forgot about that person." And sometimes it's just life that gets in the way for people and they're like, "I just don't have time to deal with this." And so they don't and they table it and then they come back to it later.
One
Yeah,
of the
and
And
best
I
the
think
things that we have ever heard was from Kim Berkheimer. And she said, when I started this business, I made a decision that I was never quitting. And when she made that decision, it took all of her decision making out of her process, right? So she didn't have to go through this. She took a lot of the roller coaster out by making that decision because now she knew I'm just going to not only play one game after another, after another, after another, but I'm playing the games not just to win each individual game, but to win the championship, right? And one championship after another. And that doesn't always look like having your customer, like every person that you talk to, sign up. It doesn't look like having every consultant that you bring on stick, right? And it doesn't mean that your volume goes like this.
mm,
In any other business, there you have dips, you have valleys. It goes up and down from year to year, and that does not mean that you are not winning,
mm,
right? So we have to focus on the journey and improving our skills so that when we come across and our roller coaster goes colliding into someone, our timeline goes colliding into their timeline, we don't have so much of an emotional attachment to it that we can not only be not paralyzed, we can move forward and take more action, and we can be in the most open place to be listening, right? Because we know that's one of the most important things we can do when we come into connection with people. So anyway, we're going to do more training on these specific conversations and what to say in different scenarios. But we have a lot to cover tonight. So we are going to move on to Susan. Was there anything else you wanted to say about that subject?
No, just be patient with yourself. Just like, so we were talking about the mind body system and how patient we need to be, and that we're noticing change. You're going to notice this with the longer you're in this business because it is a personal growth journey. And talk to us all the time. Call me, text, we can talk about all these things as they arise. We're here for you. But it takes time. It just takes time. Be patient with yourself. You're doing fabulous. And you are an example of what you're doing, and people are going to watch you, and if they're not ready now, like you have planted seeds, they may never be ready, or they may be ready tomorrow, or it might be 10 years, but it's not about you, it's them, really. It's mostly what's going on with them that they're not ready, or so but we
or
we will
even
talk
other
more
things
about
that are
these.
going on in their life. You
Yeah.
know, it may not be about them either. It just may be that circumstances are such that now is not the time.
Yeah.
You know, so, and I like what you said, Susan. It's they will be watching. They will be watching you. They will be watching your circle. They will be watching. And sooner or later, they're going to go, I want to be a part of that, or I want to try that, or whatever. It's just whenever it's right for them, they'll suddenly pop up. So keeping the pump primed, as it were, just keep talking, keep putting it out there. And sooner or later, the spigot will open and a whole bunch of people will fall out of it and say, I want that.
Yeah.
So, and it's never really consistent. It just kind of happens when it happens, and then you go back to work again, and you keep pumping and pumping, and priming and priming and priming. So, but it's it's definitely a process, like Gloria said.
Yeah.
And then if you quit, you won't be there when it happens. So,
Yeah.
and that's the fun part, is when it happens.
Yeah, it is fun.
Oh, thanks you
Who's
guys.
up, Jennings?
Let's go to Dr. Gloria, and she is going to talk to us about
Hmm.
the mind part of the mind body from her vast psychological knowledge.
Well,
Hmm.
this is so fun to talk about. And I see we got Jenna on there, psychotherapist, so she's probably got some insights as well. But what I want to do is just roll back the clock. And let's go. I'm seeing some OGs on here. Kim Berkheimer, Susan Silberman, Linda Kaufman, Jennings. We all remember in the old days when we were launching Nerf 2, and we were so full of excitement and nothing could stop us. And so we sold, enrolled thousands of people on this. And so would say, I am enrolling on this because nothing has helped the arthritis in my little finger on my right hand. And we'd say, well, this has a possibility with a decrease in the inflammation. It should help. And then they would take it and they would take it. And then we would be about 6 months, 6 weeks or 2 months in. And they would come back to Kim and they'd say, Kim, I'm going to, please stop my subscription because my little finger still hurts. Meanwhile, everybody in their sphere, in their family, all of us can see their energy body has changed. They are vibrant. They are sleeping for the first time. They're out playing golf or taking aerobics, something that they haven't done in years, but they're focused on that one little finger. And so, how this translates into what we're involved in today is that we have a bunch of people who are just looking at the scale. I mean, it's hard not to do. We're doing it, right? Even though we don't want to, you have to look at the scale. So, I'm going to just tell you a little bit about my experience because I am so blessed in having um, the opportunity to talk to um, clients who are on the mind body. And these are people I have known for perhaps years, at least 4 or 5 years, most of them. I haven't seen them week to week over that period of time, but I have recorded in my mind what they are like at date certain, another date, and another date. You know this, Chrissy. When you see people, you've got an image that's different than the scale. And so these are people, I have 3 people who have been really troubled. They're on a variety of medications. Oops, keep losing my. They're on a variety of medications. It's my goodness, they have troubles in their life. Every week when I pick up the phone or talk to them on Zoom, it's like, how are you doing? And they go, awful. You won't believe what happened this week. Well, now I have these people and they recognize it in themselves. I say, hey, how are you doing? And they go, great. And they tell me of all the things they've accomplished. And their voice is calm and they've discontinued medications and they are just in a whole different space. I mean, and this occurs over month to month since they've been on this product. Now, I don't know that they have reduced tons of weight or body fat, but they are reshaping themselves. But most importantly, these people say, I'd never stop taking this because it makes me feel so good. And I'm saying never stop this. These are people who've been on all kinds of prescription medications for weight loss as well, and this works better. So let me just get one up here. Keeps going away. They are saying things like, I feel so much calmer. not only is there not the food noise in the back of my mind, but there's not the emotional noise in the back of my mind. I'm not saying self-critical things to myself all the time. I have the energy. Not only am I moving my body more, but I have the energy and the desire to. I don't want sweets. I don't want alcohol. I don't have to say don't do it because I don't want it. And people around me seem to be liking me more. This has made a profound difference in my life, and I'll never stop taking this. Now, what's the analogy to the little finger? The analogy to the little finger is there are profound things happening with this system, and I think every one of us could name those things, something profound in our lives that we've noticed, but we can't pay attention to the little finger. And what we do often when we sign people up is we go, hey, get on board. This is going to be awesome. And I'll keep in touch with you. But we fail to do is we fail to take a photograph, a 360-degree photograph of their emotional balance, their energy, their thoughts, their words, their activities, their sleep, all of those things. I'm telling you, whether you sign somebody up for the FACE system or you sign them up for Nerf 2 or for this, you've got to create a memory of that individual. We used to start out, remember, Susan, we would start out with checklist of all different things, and we'd say, okay, we're going to record this, and we'll keep track, and we'll look at this in a month and 2 months and 3 months. So whether you do it that way or whether you make notes, but somehow we have to realize that there are profound benefits here, and if we don't reflect those to people, or they are not going to be aware of it, because all they care about is the scale. All they care about is getting skinny, right? Okay, so why is this profound? I don't know, and I just want to share with you guys that I go to Dr. Melody Rodarte's practice I have to drive an hour, I know that's awful, to Gilbert, Arizona to see her practice. And they're religious about taking extensive blood tests and measurements and so forth and so forth. And the nurse practitioner that I'm working with said, Gloria, have you seen your blood tests? And I thought, okay, I'm 74. She wants to tell me that it's come down. I got cancer or something. And I said, no, I haven't seen them. I tried to find them, but they didn't have them posted from the lab. And she said, Gloria, every single one of your blood test factors is perfect. I said, it can't be perfect. But I know that there were some kind of little squirrely things, not scary, scary things, but squirrely things that were going on in my blood tests that were out of range, maybe 4 or 5. And this time they were perfect. And I know why they're perfect, because of the addition of the mind body. My digestion is better than it was when I was in my 20s. So let's get a 360-degree view of what we are offering to people. This is as much mind as it is body. And apparently the GLP-1 system works with affects the hypothalamus, which regulates hunger and satiety and moods and so forth. And we see a lot of improvement when people start taking this, of a decrease in anxiety and depression. Now, those people who are losing weight might say something to you like this. Oh, of course I'm not anxious and depressed because I've lost 5 pounds, or I've lost 15 pounds, or I can fit in these jeans. But there are other things going on. So we have to enlighten them of really how important this is. There is a study that I found, which was done at Washington University. It was published in a journal called Nature Medicine. And this is Washington University in your St. Louis, Susan. And it was a large scale study. So it was looking at 250,000 people. And these were a diabetic population, and they were looking at people who had employed GLP-1 systems, a variety of them, not our mind body, keep that in mind. But they found that there was a 13% diminishment in opioid use. Huge. That's one of the hardest things to beat. 19% reduction in bulimia, 18% reduction in schizophrenia or other psychotic disorders, and a 10% reduction in suicidal ideation. So we're going to be seeing research that affirms that this is not only something important for weight management and metabolism and insulin resistance, but this is another key factor for mind and wellness and well-being. So I'm sorry to have lectured to you. I didn't mean to get on my pulpit here, but it's so important. Never, ever, ever, ever. When you enroll somebody, they've just completed a registration form. You have not initiated them. And so it's up to us to look at these people, to see where they are. We may not tell them, God, you look depressed as hell, and no wonder nobody likes you. But to hold their hand and kind of say, gosh, I haven't heard you say, good, I feel great, for a month in a row ever. And I've known you for 6 years. And they get it, but they have to be reminded. So that's my recommendation. And
I love that, Monji. Thank you so
hope that
much. And one of the ways that I love what you're saying about taking a snapshot or a portrait of someone, and what we can see from the outside, they say like, oh, well, when you take a picture of a sunset, it never looks as beautiful as when you see it in person, right? You can never fully capture it on a camera. And it's the same when somebody is looking at themselves, they don't see the full dimension of all of those different elements that are coming together, but we can see it for them. And luckily, Susan and I just updated our wellness survey, our little inventory sheet that you can use for new customers, so that you can use it when they first get started, and then you could check it every once in a while and help them remember how they felt at first, because I know so many of us have forgotten the way that we felt when we started.
Yeah. Let me just jump in for a second and say that one of the things that makes people know, that confirms that you care about them, is that you remember parts of their history. So do the best job you can to remember the initial person, the person at 1 month, 2 months. And when you say, you remember how you felt about this, then you've got them. They know that you really, truly care. So,
and take note of the things like, all of a sudden I just felt like repainting my whole kitchen, or wow, now I'm going to all of these yoga classes, or so, people tell you things. So,
yeah, that's
translate those
unrelated. No,
little.
that's just, yeah. Yeah.
The other thing that I like we've talked about expectations, that sometimes we set them too high for people, and that I'm learning again over and over and over again that everybody has a slightly different path when they get activated. So the mind body, how I think you, Gloria, said, oh, I slept like a baby like the first night. 4 months for me. But Gloria, I'm sleeping. I've always complained about sleep. I'm sleeping the best I've slept, but it took me over 4 months on the mind body with all the things I've done all these years. I've slept on and off, obviously, but really good sleep. So we can share each other's stories too. I like that. We have each other's stories. So like you, my friend, Gloria slept the first night. I myself, it took me 4 months, but I've never slept better, something like that. So the whole thing about expectations, I think, we can check ourselves on. We get really excited and then we like promise the world because we know one
Right,
person
exactly. And we don't want to overpromise. That's such a good point. But there is growing evidence that this is incredible for depression and anxiety,
It's
and
huge.
that it is a big factor in addictions.
Absolutely.
And do we know any family that's not touched by one of those three things?
No.
I don't think so. Or anybody, right?
Yeah,
So, yeah.
it's great.
So good.
Thank
She's
So
kind.
I wanted to share quickly. I was working in the yard with my mom yesterday. We're getting ready for a week's worth of rain. And all of a sudden she turns to me when I ask her, where's the pruning shears? She goes, oh, well, you left them right over there. She goes, you know what? My short-term memory has greatly improved. And she just turned 94.
Oh, wow.
Well, Lisa, didn't her doctor tell her she needs to get off all of this? One of your sisters took her to a doctor that said, don't take any of these products again.
Yes, it wasn't a doctor. It was a family nurse practitioner.
Who doesn't know what
And
she's talking about?
she does not know what she's talking about. So when I shared a little tidbit that was shared with me by Gloria, that she doesn't understand the technology, and my mom does understand it, and she just said, "Oh, I'm not stopping this. This is the first time in
Yes.
60
Wow.
years that her digestive system is working. She's putting on weight. She's eating full meals. It's amazing.
So good.
She used to eat like a bird.
That's awesome, Lisa.
Yeah, yeah, she's golfing today.
Oh my God.
No.
And she's 94?
Yeah, she walks
Yay.
at least 3 miles a day with her big old German Shepherd
Wow.
every day.
Wow.
Oh, thank you
She,
so much for sharing that. Wow.
yeah, but it just makes me think of all the people in the back of my mind who are talking about their parents having dementia or Alzheimer's. And I keep saying, well, I know of a product, and they just won't listen. But I got to get my mom to do some kind of testimonial that I can
Mm.
share.
Ah.
Oh, that would be great. Maybe a little video.
Yeah, something brief. Yeah. Um, yeah, because I mean, she started the products obviously 4 years ago. So she is activated, but she's been on half dose of GLP-1 for 3 months. So
Wow. Doesn't that make you just think this whole journey is worthwhile? When people understand and do this and you can see the benefits from the continued use.
yeah, if you just hang in there, because she had a lot of other health issues. She's never taken medications or anything, but she did have health issues that had to be taken care of first. And that was the body deciding what needed to be taken care of first. And then it just keeps getting better.
Yay.
Her
Yay.
metabolic age is 76.
That's
Whoa.
wonderful.
Yeah, yeah, crazy. And it's all because of LB.
How do you get a number like that, Lisa?
She does the Renfo where you put all the information in and you keep track of everything, and then it figures out your metabolism and then all that good stuff. Yeah,
So she's doing that too.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So cool. That's amazing. Chrissy Ray, tell us why that might be.
Okay, so now it's time to really nerd out on the science, okay?
Oh,
So
we don't want to hear that.
you've heard about just some overview things. And I don't know, Jennings, if you have those little slides, you can just throw one up. You have that ability. But all the things that Gloria was talking about, they work because the GLP-1 molecule, you've got receptors everywhere in your body. You've got receptors in your brain, in your muscles, in your gut, in your kidneys, in your heart, and they're everywhere. And so if you want to just go back to even just talking about the improved mood, the GLP-1, who's heard of serotonin? Who's heard of Prozac? Who's heard of Lexapro? Who's heard of Celexa? Who's heard of Zoloft? All of those increase serotonin. Well, guess what GLP-1 does? It increases serotonin, which helps to improve mood, depression, and anxiety. It also hits that vagus nerve, that cranial nerve number 10, that is sort of the brake for the body and slows things down. So that's going to decrease a lot of anxiety. Going back to those little neurotransmitters are those little chemical messengers that tell your brain what to do and how to feel and whatnot. Dopamine, we talk about, we're actually getting indications to use GLP-1 injectables. So pharmaceuticals are going to be indicated soon for drugs of abuse to help decrease the addictions that are going on, because GLP-1 increases dopamine. Dopamine is that neurotransmitter that it gives you that reward, like, hey, I did something awesome. It makes me feel good, right? And so that's how that's working. And then go back to sleep with Susan. So you've got this little chemical called GABA, gamma aminobutyric acid. Well, GABA, what she likes to do is to just sort of dial the brain down and help you to relax and say, oh, I'm ready to sleep, along with melatonin. They come in together, they wash over your brain and say, it's time to go to bed. Well, GLP-1 upregulates the production of GABA. So you're going to sleep better. And this slide, I put down several different images. Some people do better with images. Some people do better with lists. I actually like both. So this one's really awesome because it's pictures with the list. So if we look at the stomach, we already know that stuff. That's like that, and that's going to be like the weight loss portion. Decrease our gastric emptying. It slows the transit of food. And when that happens, all of our pancreatic enzymes that eat up all that food and digest it for us, it can do a better job. We get better absorption of our nutrients. And then you have Lisa's mother, who's putting weight on for the first time in like forever because she's getting better nutrient absorption. Okay. We've got, of course, that increased satiety, meaning our brain tells us that we're full and we feel good and don't need to eat. And a lot of that has to do with the dopamine signaling that we talked about, that reward, like, oh, I feel so good, right? My brain feels good. And then going along, now the brain is really cool. So I listened to a podcast a couple weeks ago. It's a lady who's a neurologist, but she's a preventative neurologist, and she's the only preventative neurologist in the world. And one of the really cool things she talked about was Alzheimer's. I'm sure many of you have heard that Alzheimer's disease is being talked about as being type 3 diabetes. You're like, well, what does that even mean? Well, what that means, what we're finding out, is that a lot of people who have type 2 diabetes have a much higher increased risk of Alzheimer's. We ask ourselves, why is that happening? Remember, type 2 diabetes is impaired glucose handling. You're not able to break down glucose and utilize it the way that you're supposed to. When you've got too much glucose in the body, it wreaks havoc. It's kind of like if you think of like Pac-Man and the ghosts that are in Pac-Man, like the ghosts are causing havoc and damage and whatnot. It's causing damage everywhere. Well, and that's where GLP-1 comes in. It starts chomping everything, right? And gets rid of that glucose and starts to decrease that damage. This is going to get super nerdy again, but I am really nerdy with these things. So you've heard Alzheimer's disease, you've probably heard of tau and amyloid proteins that are associated with Alzheimer's disease. Those come into play because of impaired glucose handling. Because you have too much glucose in the brain, it creates extra amyloid proteins and extra tau proteins. GLP-1 will dephosphorylate tau, which means you take that little phosphate group off of it, and then your garbage can macrophages can get in there and get rid of it. Eat it up and get it out of the brain. Same thing with the amyloid. It helps to decrease and untangle amyloid. And so it's decreasing Alzheimer's disease, like the risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. And we go back to Lisa's mom, who said, my short-term memory is coming back. Well, part of that's decreasing oxidative stress. But if we speak specifically of GLP-1 activators, increased GLP-1 in the brain helps to signal acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is the neurotransmitter that helps you remember things. Like all these things are scientifically proven. You can go and look at all these little neurotransmitters and say, well, no wonder they're doing better. Acetylcholine went up, and that's the nerdy side of me, right?
Thank you.
And it's just, then we can look at kidney function. Well, actually, let's start with the heart. We need heart functioning is really super duper important. One of the GLP-1 injectable systems, pharmaceuticals, Mounjaro, has just gotten a clinical indication for cardiac protection. And the reasons, and it's interesting, you ask the drug rep, because she was in brought lunch last week. Well, why, what's the mechanism? Why is it working? Why is it protecting the heart? She's like, well, we don't really know. They don't know. But this is what it comes down to. While we may not know the exact mechanisms, in individuals who don't have enough GLP-1 in their body, they typically tend to be overweight. Okay. And when a person is overweight, it puts you at a higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance. And people who are overweight and have type 2 diabetes have a higher incidence of obstructive sleep apnea. I mean, they stop breathing at night. And when you're not getting enough oxygen to your brain and your heart and everything else, there's a whole cascade of events that occurs, like your blood pressure goes up. And then your heart has to work harder. When your heart's having to pump harder to make that blood, it's getting strained and it starts to get floppy and weak. And you develop congestive heart failure because you're wearing that muscle out. And so just the simple fact of increasing GLP-1 in your body, you're naturally over time going to start to lose weight. Your glucose is going to be able to come under control. So your risk of developing diabetes is going to go down. And now that you're losing weight, you're not becoming diabetic. You're not going to have obstructive sleep apnea because obstructive sleep apnea is development of, like in most people, excess fatty tissue in the back of the throat. So it collapses the airways. You can't breathe at night. And
Kristen,
so,
I'm
yeah.
sorry to interrupt you, but I have to ask a question about, so the synthetic is still able to do all of this for
Mhm.
like your heart and I mean all of the
Yeah.
systems,
Yeah.
but we've all heard of the things that are bad about the synthetics for your muscles, and your heart is a
Yeah.
muscle. And so sorry to interrupt, but I just had to bring that up when you're talking about all the great things about your heart, and that is so, so important. Okay, that's all. You know where to go from here.
Yeah, no. And so there are, like, we know all the, like, pharmaceutical companies are doing research for us, universities are doing research for us, and there's risks and benefits to everything that we do, including using pharmaceuticals. And there's certainly big risks associated with that. And we know that muscle mass loss is a risk for that, specifically skeletal muscle, not necessarily smooth muscle. Your heart is smooth muscle, so you're not losing that. They're different types of muscle. Um, but that skeletal muscle is super duper important because we don't want to get old and brittle and break when we're old. We call that osteoporosis. That's when we start losing some of the calcium and the mineralization in our bones. And skeletal muscle mass helps to maintain that. And so if you're maintaining skeletal muscle by not using injectable synthetic GLP-1s, by doing it naturally, getting your body to increase this naturally, you're protecting yourself against osteoporosis as you age. And if you are a post-menopausal white woman of European descent, your risk for osteoporosis is way higher. And so that helps with your bone health. It helps, we know that it helps regulate hormones. And so your bone health is regulated by hormones. It's regulated by parathyroid hormone and calcitonin. And that there's just the impact of this molecule on the body is astronomical. Oh, let's go back to Gloria. She's talking about her lab work. I encourage all my people, like all my patients that are on this system, like, let's do your labs. We're going to retest it in about 4 to 6 months. And I'm going to redo my labs next month in April because I will have been 4 months out by then. But and keep in mind, like the research that I'm looking up is just talking about GLP-1 in general. It's not necessarily where the source of it is. They know that so they specifically do research like how do these injectables affect all these different body systems, but they know that these body systems are affected by your native GLP-1 molecule as well, which is what we're doing with LifeVantage products, is increasing your body's own ability to make its own native GLP-1, native meaning it's your own, right? It's not given to you as a medication. But if we go back to those metabolic changes, so it helps with fatty acid metabolism. So total cholesterol typically goes down. Oh, here we go. So total cholesterol typically goes down. You've got LDL, which is your lousy or bad cholesterol. It goes down. You've got HDL, which is your happy cholesterol. It goes up. And you start seeing better metabolism. The other thing that GLP-1 molecule does, which was supported by the studies that were released in January by LifeVantage, is that it helps to reduce oxidative stress by increasing cyclic adenosine monophosphate, so CAMP levels, which help with decreasing free radicals. And that's why that study showed that putting Protandim with Core Mind Body, you get 4 new pathways that are activated to decrease oxidative stress, and 9 new pathways with fatty acid lipid metabolism. But the other thing that it does, that the GLP-1 hormone does, is it helps with cellular renewal in the entire body and especially the brain. A lot of the neurological conditions that we have, like Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, Huntington's disease. Now, Huntington's is a genetic issue. However, what they're noticing is inflammation in the brain worsens the dementia component, the memory component. And all these things come back to neuroinflammation. And GLP-1 helps to decrease neuroinflammation. And when you couple it with Protandim, holy cow, it's out of this world. Like, it's an amazing, blow your mind type of synergistic effect. It's just amazing. And then let's go to the kidneys. Like, kidneys are a really important part of our lives. If we don't have kidneys, we're on dialysis, and we got to go get hooked to tubes 3 times a week for the rest of our lives, and we can't do anything. So GLP-1 helps to decrease blood pressure, which helps to increase the amount of blood that's flowing through the kidneys. We call that glomerular filtration rate. And which is abbreviated GFR, when that decreases, we call that chronic kidney disease. If it goes down far enough, you get on dialysis, and nobody wants to go on to dialysis lane. So being able to protect all of your organ systems is amazing, because you look at this, GLP-1 protects all of these organ systems. And you can see this is just another schematic, another graphic that just shows like basic high overview instead of the specific details. Some of us want details. I want lots of details. Some of you want this kind of slide, and that's why that's in there. And I think it's really important as we talk to our folks, like Gloria mentioned, they will start to notice a whole body effect. And I always tell my folks, certainly a lot of these things come down to cost. But if you look at what it's going to cost for a copay to get Ozempic or to get Mounjaro, a lot of people, their insurance companies, like they're on a tier 5 copay, it might be $200. It might be $250, or they might not be able to get it. I had a younger kid in his 20s, new patient, came in 2 weeks ago, saw him again last week to go through his labs. He's pre-diabetic. He's probably got 75 pounds to lose to really get back down to a healthy weight. His cholesterol levels are really high. And he came in specifically to get a primary care provider because he wanted to get on either Ozempic or Mounjaro. So we talked about it. Most insurance companies will not pay for Ozempic or Mounjaro if you are not diabetic. If you are just wanting to lose for weight loss, most of them are still not doing that. You have to try to get prior authorizations. If you have sleep apnea, you might be able to get it. But that's the only indication so far where some insurance plans are paying for it, but most of them are not. And so it's like, well, that's okay. I'll just pay cash for it. I'm like, okay, do you have $1,500 a month? And their jaw just drops. Well, but I heard that Mounjaro, like that it's $250. I said, yeah, it actually starts out at $399 for a cash pay price if you don't have insurance, and that's for the lowest dose. And when it's time to go to the next dose, they add on another $100. So, or we can talk about this natural way to increase your body's own GLP-1 and not have the side effects associated with muscle loss, with developing dependence upon it because you suppress your body's ability to be able to make this hormone. And after we had the discussion, he thought about it, and I said, oh, and I always recommend the Protandim with the Mind Body because the studies are so compelling. And I said, if you do these two together, it's going to cost you $213 for shipping. And when they look at that versus $500 a month, he's like, yeah, sign me up. And so knowing some of those prices can be advantageous. And I know that y'all don't know that because you don't work in this industry, and that's okay. But you can always text me you can always call me. Like, I'm happy to have a conversation with each one of you individually to help you understand the medical aspects of things. Like, this is my jam. I love talking about these things. Yeah. And I don't even, I think there's a couple other slides down there, Jennings. I don't know. I've put up several things in just because people understand things differently. But there's just so many overall body benefits to this system coupled with Protandim that we're all of us using it. Here's another, this is like very simple way to look at it. So if you look at the decreased coagulation, it's always a blood clot that causes a heart attack. So if you're not clotting, and it comes from endothelial cell wall damage, so that means the inside of the blood vessels get damaged, which causes a clot to form. That's another thing GLP-1 helps to, because you're decreasing the inflammation, you're decreasing the damage on the inside of those cells, which decreases your chance for heart attack and stroke. I mean, I could go on and on probably for the next 2 to 3 hours, but nobody wants to listen to me wax like nerdy anymore. So who has some questions?
That's not true, Chrissy. I love hearing you talk. Hey, but
Susan's the exception.
But I'm wondering if you could. No, Michelle Kartenhauser just said I will listen all day, and I bet majority of these people could listen to you for hours. But is there any chance that you could just do on our consultant Facebook group that you could just say some of those costs? You know, the comparisons that you just made, like if a person goes on the pharmaceutical, it's going to cost this, and then it's going to go up to this. If they have insurance, they're still going to pay more than if they bought the natural. Is there any chance you could just do a little blurb for us?
I could.
Then you don't have to answer, because you're busy.
Chrissy,
Yeah.
you know
Yes,
what I
ma'am.
think we're all thinking? Raise your hand if you're thinking this. I wish my care provider could talk like Chrissy Ray. You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. You're a gem, and this is so great.
Well, thank you. Oh yeah, mitochondrial function and autophagy. Like, these are really cool things too, because who wants more energy? Because as we age, we all know we get a little bit pooped out. And if you're increasing your mitochondria, you're increasing your gas. Like, more gas in the tank means you can go faster and longer.
I put something in the chat for you, Chrissy. Can you hear me?
No, I can hear you. Yeah.
I was just asking, what specific tests would be the basics to start with?
Sure.
CBC, CMP, or what?
Yeah, so and I do a set of labs on all of my patients. Got your pencils out?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to do a CBC. That stands for a complete blood count. It's going to look at red blood cells, white blood cells, hemoglobin, hematocrit, platelets, red blood cell industries, which give you an idea on if you're iron deficient, if you don't have enough B12. Okay. And then the next test I'll do is a CMP. That's a complete metabolic profile. That's going to look at your kidney function, at your liver enzymes. It gives you a fasting glucose. It looks at electrolytes, calcium, and total protein.
Chrissy,
Ma'am.
it's Kim. Difference between CMP, why CMP versus BMP?
So the difference between CMP and BMP, so C stands for complete metabolic profile, B is basic metabolic profile. So the only difference is that the C, the complete, includes liver enzymes where basic does not.
Okay.
And it's a really good idea to have those liver enzymes. Now, if you have a liver problem going on, I'll do a BMP, so a basic metabolic profile with a specific hepatic function or liver profile, because then it adds in more liver information.
Gotcha.
I will also do a TSH and a free T4. I'm always checking that at least once a year on my folks to make sure thyroid function is functioning the way it needs to.
Can you say it one more time?
TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone.
And T4.
And I'll do a free T4.
Mm-hmm.
You could do a whole thyroid panel if you want. Like, you could do like a total T3. You could throw that in there if you want to, but it's not super necessary. You get a pretty good idea of what's going on with just the TSH and free T4.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the hemoglobin A1C. That one's going to look at the average blood glucoses over the prior 90 days. So that fasting glucose is great. In fact, I had a patient, I had messaged her yesterday about her A1C, and said, hey, it's still in the pre-diabetic range. It's at 5.9%. And she messaged me back, but she said, well, how can that be? My glucose was 90. It wasn't high, because 80 to 100 is normal. Well, you can have a normal fasting glucose, because she had a fasting lab drawn. But if your overall average glucose over the prior 90 days is higher than 100, you're going to have an A1C that's going to be up in that prediabetes land. Well, I call it pre-diabetes lane headed to diabetes land, which nobody wants to go there. At least nobody I know wants to go there. So that hemoglobin A1C is super important.
On the A1C, the range is pretty small, isn't it?
It is. So every 1/10 of a point on the A1C is super significant. If we think of like a Richter scale, how you go up like a 1/10 of a point and like there's an exponential increase, it's kind of like that. So for hemoglobin A1C, once you hit 5.7, you're considered pre-diabetic. It's like, danger, danger, red flag, pay attention. Your body is telling you have insulin resistance. Okay. Once you hit 6.5%, you tip over into diabetes land. But what's the difference between 6.5% and 6.4%? Well, it's a 1/10 of a point, and one says you're diabetic, the other one says you're not diabetic. Whatever. You have a ton of sugar that needs to be dealt with that your body isn't handling. And while you're not technically diagnosed as diabetic, you're diabetic. I will also do on all of my folks a lipid panel. So on a lipid panel, you're going to get a total cholesterol. You're going to get an HDL, that's that happy or good cholesterol. You're going to get a VLDL, which is a very bad cholesterol. You're going to get an LDL, which is a lousy cholesterol. Okay. And you'll also get a triglyceride. And as you look at those levels, if your LDL, that lousy cholesterol, is above 100, and if your triglycerides are above 150, you're insulin resistant. And some of that's genetically controlled, and you could become a raw vegan. You can't get your LDL down no matter what you do. And that's genes. And in that case, there's a couple other tests I do to risk stratify and will suggest medications to help lower LDL. Not all the time, but in school we're taught LDL above 100, you need to lower their cholesterol with medications. I don't ascribe to that way of practicing medicine. And then fasting insulin. Patty brought up fasting insulin. That's a really good one to do. That's one that I have not yet incorporated. Not all insurance companies will pay for a fasting insulin. And sometimes when I put things in and people's insurance doesn't pay for it, they get really bent out of shape and angry at me. But that is one, I just need to start using it and see what happens. I can get a pretty good idea of what somebody's fasting insulin is, looking at their hemoglobin A1C, looking at their triglyceride level and their LDL. If those things are all elevated, their fasting insulin is high. They have they have insulin resistance and metabolic syndrome that's developed. As far as a fasting insulin goes, you want that to be 11 or less, typically. On all of my folks, I will also do a vitamin B12, a folate, and a vitamin D. And the reason I do those is because those are common vitamin deficiencies that are really easy to fix, but they have a profound effect on you if they are low. Profound, profound effect.
What about the LifeVantage products that have vitamin D in it? Is that just not considered enough?
Well, it really depends on what your vitamin D level is where it's at. So that's why it's so important to get tested. Now, the normal range for vitamin D is 30 to 100. 30 is not adequate. So we look at normal range and we look at optimal. Optimal vitamin D level is 60 to 90 nanograms per milliliter. And so if you are on a LifeVantage product or any other vitamin D3, and ideally you want vitamin D3 with a K2 in it, because the K2 helps to regulate calcium better so that you're not putting it in your arteries. It just helps to keep the calcium where it doesn't belong. And if you are not in that 60 to 90, and really like the sweet spot is about 80, if you're not there, you're not taking enough. You've got to increase your vitamin D3. And I'll give you an example. I was taking 6,000 international units daily for I don't know how many years, and I could not get my vitamin D3 to budge above 43. It just wouldn't go. It didn't matter what I did. When I upped it to 10,000 IU a day, I'm up to 90. No problems. Didn't take very long. And it needs to be D3, not D2. D2 has to be converted in the body to D3, which is the usable form. So skip that step. Give your body a break and take the D3. Then you've got vitamin B12. That's involved in a lot of things. It's involved in a lot of your nerve function. And it's involved in cognition. It's involved in iron regulation. It's involved in DNA regulation, specifically in your red blood cells. You need vitamin B12. So the range for vitamin B12 is 230 to 1500 or 1200, I think. I can't remember. Anyway, and if you're at like 250, you're going to be normal. Guess what? That's not enough. That's not optimal. Optimally, you want to be in that 600 to 1200 range. Shooting for like an 8 to 900, like you're going to function better. I'll have folks that come in and they're so low on all these things. All I do is put them on a vitamin D3, methylated B complex vitamin that has methylcobalamin and methylfolate in it. And they come back to me like a month later, like, oh my gosh, you've changed my life. I feel so much better. And all it was a vitamin deficiency. And then you get them on Protandim, and then they're like, oh my gosh, I don't ache and I don't hurt anymore. I mean, I wish healthcare providers had a more open mind to being able to treat the whole body, the patient holistically, and not just look at lab numbers and not just look at traditional medicine as the end all be all, because traditional medicines are good and sometimes you just really need them. If you've got pneumonia, you need some antibiotics if it's a bacteria to take care of this. People used to die all the time in pneumonia. If you've got lipids that just won't come down, doesn't matter. You've done everything you can do through diet and lifestyle, and that LDL is still sitting up in the 180s. Like, you're going to build up plaque, and so medicines help to bring that down, and they're super valuable. But there's so much power behind these LifeVantage products because it changes how we feel and how our metabolism works. We just can't test for it on a lab test. And so then a lot of healthcare providers won't put any stock in it, which is just too bad. So did everybody get those labs written down? We can do a refresher. So CBC, CMP, TSH and free T4, lipid panel, hemoglobin A1C, insulin, vitamin B12, folate, vitamin D. Another one that I will add on to all my patients once a year is a microalbumin creatinine ratio. That one is done on urine. And the reason I do that is because I'm looking for chronic kidney disease. And I can see chronic kidney disease in that CMP, the complete metabolic profile panel. But about 10% of folks, they have a normal blood kidney workup, but not in their urine. Once I do their urine tests, I find that they actually have chronic kidney disease. So I'm catching more chronic kidney disease folks, and we have great medications for that.
Wouldn't they be symptomatic? Some sort of
Asymptomatic, no symptoms. It's just like high blood pressure, no symptoms. It's like colon cancer, no symptoms.
So
until
whether you're dehydrated or not.
Whether you're dehydrated or not, no symptoms.
Wow.
And that's why I screen for it.
Because
you wouldn't know unless you look for it. Yeah.
Sign me up, Chrissy.
Okay. Now I know that we sort of jumped ship and got off topic here. But here's the thing. Implementing LifeVantage products, you can talk to your folks and say, hey, let's do a couple different things. Take all your body measurements. I'll tell people to measure their neck, measure their upper arms, their lower arms, measure their bust, their waist, their hips, their thighs, their knees, and their ankles. And I tell them to do it in centimeters, not inches. Inches are hard for the brain to even understand and work with. Don't do it. Go metric. Okay. Centimeters is so much easier to see the change. Tell them to check it every month. I've been on the Mind Body just over 2 months, 2.5 months, I guess. I haven't lost a single pound. In fact, I'm one of those folks that's gone up about 3 pounds. But my lunch lady arms have gone down by 2 centimeters. My bust, I think I've lost 2.5 centimeters, and you guys can't see me. I'm flat chested. My waist has gone down by 2 centimeters. My hips have gone down by 3 centimeters. My legs haven't
But
budged.
you were skinny to
Um,
begin with.
yeah, like I don't have weight to lose, but I have body composition change. And I emphasize that with my folks. It's not the number on the scale, it's the body composition change. How is your body remodeling itself? What's changing? What's happening? And they will take those measurements along with the photos that they never show anybody. They could put in like the hidden album if they want. They'll be able to visually see it with the tape measure and with the photos. And then I also will do labs on all my folks. And I'm like, okay, we're going to retest these in 3 to 6 months. Insurance typically will pay for labs every 3 months.
See, what did you say about the measurements? How to take them?
How to take them? Centimeters.
Centimeters, not inches.
We need
Like that's a big deal. So let me give you a visual. There's 2.54 centimeters in every inch. So 2.5 centimeters to an inch. Okay. And so it's so much easier to work. Your brain works better in tens anyway. Metric system is all tens. And you'll be able to see that incremental change much easier than like, oh, I lost a quarter of an inch. Oh, I think that's 13/16. Is that 7/8 or 7/16? I'm not sure. Like, how do I read this again? Centimeters are super easy. And you have them get like one of those like fabric tape measures that are bendy, not what you measure your walls with. Those stiff ones don't work well, right? Don't try to do
I was
that.
gonna ask if sorry, I've been meaning to ask if the ones that come with the scale are any good, that they there was a scale that came with one, and it's like digital. Like when you wrap it around whichever area, it gives you I don't know if anybody's used them and how well they work.
They work
I've
great.
never heard of it.
I use it. You can get it through Renfo also. It's magnificent. It
Okay.
does it in centimeters and inches, and it is digital. But I just put it in chat, Me 360. It's an app. You stand in front of your phone, it scans you, and it spits out all those measurements.
Oh, I
And then
gotta write that down.
it gives you a silhouette of your own body, and it tells you if mine says lose 18 pounds and you'll look like this, put 50 on and you'll look like this, and it's 360.
Now, so you stand there naked, waked?
Well, just tight clothes. I was in my underwear.
Oh, okay.
And you just stand there and it scans you and just pops out the measurements, and they're
That's cool.
accurate.
What's it called again?
Me 360.
Me?
Oh, okay,
Yes.
thanks.
It's all
It's in
spelled out. I'm gonna I'll send it text it to you right now, Linda.
It does cost, I think, $2.99 a month, but for me, it's worth less than 5 minutes to get my measurements versus trying to wrap the Renfro tape and have it spit out. And yeah,
I just put my number in the chat. Take it down, text me, tell me who you are. And if you want to talk individually, like I'm really happy to. Let's hear. Oh, so encouraging your folks, go see your doctor, get your labs done. And then like Gloria has noticed, like, holy cow, how did my labs normalize? Well, that's the GLP-1 that did that for you because it modulates fat metabolism. Remember, 9 new pathways, but that's in conjunction with Protandim. So tell them to get the Protandim on board, right? If you look at it, what is it? It's like 178, about 180 by itself. And to throw on the mind body, you're jumping up $43. It's like for most people, it's no brainer. And do you mind, Jennings, if I just address cost issues really quick?
Sure.
Okay, so because I have people that tell me all the time, remember, I live in really backwoods, poor Oconee County, South Carolina. Like we are really, we have a really low socioeconomic folks here. A lot of people, I'd say probably 60 to 70% of my older, like 50, well, 30 and above folks either vape or smoke. Like it's people just don't look at health the same way that people look at health in areas with that are more affluent. Um, so I think some of you are texting me. My watch is going off. That's awesome. Anyway, one of the ways that I approach the cost issue is like I'll look at them, I'll say, hey, I get it. I know that this is expensive and not everybody's going to be able to afford it. But you have to look at, I want to invest in my future and in my health. And you look at the medications you're taking right now and the copays that you're paying. What if we could peel off your blood pressure medication? What if we could take away one or two of your diabetes medications, or maybe all of them? What if we could take away that cholesterol medication? That's going to save you money right there. Okay. Because those copays are real. They cost money. Even if you've got a good insurance plan, most copays are going to be like a really good, like a Medicaid copay might be $4, but not everybody, my Medicaid folks aren't using these products, right? But like for, let's say you probably heard of Farxiga or Jardiance, that copay might be anywhere from 50 to $100 a month because it's usually a level 3, tier 3 or 4. The GLP-1 injectables, they might be a $200 copay a month.
They better be in their beds.
I'm going to bed, Mom. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
And you're good. um, so I'll address copays, right? Like how can you're going to be able to peel some of these things back because you're going to be able to be getting healthier. The other thing I'll talk to people about is we all know that cravings and hunger and needing to eat as much food as we used to goes down. So you are taking money from your food budget and putting it over here. It's all about helping people to understand that you can re-swizzle where your funds are going. There's going to be that little initial investment while your body's adjusting to it. It probably took me about 2 months for cravings to really go away. It wasn't a quick thing, but like they had cake at work last week. I'm like, before I'd be like, oh yeah, I want some cake. And I looked at it, I'm like, it doesn't even look appealing. I don't want it. And so I can say no to different things at the grocery store. You're not buying as much food. So your grocery budget is going down, right? So you're reswizzling, putting money there. And then you look at it as like this is really a life insurance policy, folks. Because if you don't have chronic conditions, you're going to live longer. You're going to be able to work longer. You'll be able to make the money that you need while you're working. You're going to be happy. You're going to feel good. And it's a heck of a lot cheaper than a life insurance policy at 51 with type 2 diabetes, hypertension, and hyperlipidemia. So there's just a lot of really great benefits. It's about helping people to be able to have that mind shift to understand that they actually can reswizzle money. Say something, and I think one of you, I don't remember if it was Kim, if it was Lisa, but somebody said, hey, you can, this was several weeks ago, just don't go out to dinner as often. How many times are you going out in a week, right? Are you going out 2 or 3 times? So cut out one time. That'll pay for it right there. And a lot of people go out to dinner these days. You look at the cost of food to eat out, it's ridiculous. It's like, ugh. Um, so those are my thoughts on trying to get over that cost barrier. And some people, they just really won't have it. And then you say, okay, I get it. It's expensive. It's not something that is affordable for you right now, but one day it might be. Let's talk again then. And it's like Jennings said, pull the emotion away from it. If you will approach this from, I just love these people and I want to do something good because I've got something I can share. It's kind of like, the old adage, I have these really awesome chocolate chip cookies that I want to just give to the world, right? And even if they say no, thank you, you say, that's okay. You might want one later. You're just not hungry yet, right? I don't know.
Yep.
And so you just don't take it personal. Don't take it personal because it's not personal. Very rarely is somebody going to say something that's personal. Now they might, Tracy, sometimes say something that's personal. Was it Tracy that had that comment earlier in the chat box? Anyway, no, it was not Tracy. It was
Linda.
Linda. Yeah, Linda. Anyway, they might say something personal like, okay, I'll give you an example. My own mother. Okay. Now, my mom, I'll give you a really quick backstory on her. She is actually, the year in 1994, she fell about 16 feet inside the house working on some windows, the high clerestory windows in our kitchen. She's lucky she didn't kill herself. She was this close to breaking her neck, but she had a severe compression fracture in her back. Didn't require surgery until she was, let's hear, until 2018. So 1994 to 2018, that's when she had, no, 2016, she had her first surgery. She's had 4 back surgeries now. She's fused from T12 all the way to S1. So that's the middle of her back all the way down to her hips. Okay. So in the last weekend of September, she and my sister, my older sister, were camping. The step ladder she was using to get out of the back of the truck tipped over with her on it. It broke her neck. Did not have a spinal cord injury. Total miracle. There's a really like cool story and like helicopter ride and all kinds of things that I don't have time to go into. But this is actually, Susan and I started talking the day before. We reacquainted and started talking about Life Vantage literally the day before. And then that's the day that the hurricane tore through South Carolina, North Carolina, and decimated everything. And then I'm waking up finding out my mother's broken her neck and is being life flighted. And I was trying to, figure everything out, trying to go through the stuff that Susan was sending me. And as I'm reading through all these things, I'm realizing my mother needs Protandim and collagen like now because she broke her C1 vertebrae. So that's the first vertebra that sits right at the base of your skull. And it was broken in 3 spots. If you have what's called a non-union, like you get a break in these bones, if they don't knit back together, if they stay open like this, that's called a non-union. They can wiggle around and move around. It's chronic pain. It puts your spinal cord at risk, like for the rest of your life. And so I talked to my mom and I said, Mom, I really think that these things are going to be good for you. This is what it costs for it. And she's like, I just don't know if I want to do that. I said, Mom, well, what is it for you? Is it a cost issue? She's like, no, like the cost is not a problem. My parents can afford it, and I knew they could. But I wanted to figure out what it is for her. And what she said to me was, I just don't believe in supplements. I just don't think they work. And I'm like, okay, Mom, I know that you know who I am and that you know my scientific brain and how it works. And I know that you trust me. And so I'm here to tell you that, like, I've read all the papers on it and the science was done right. It was the double-blinded placebo-controlled trials. And it wasn't just the company that did it. A bunch of universities picked it up and there's independent corroboration. Like the science is there and I will send you the information and you can read everything because she gets it. She understands it. She has a laboratory medicine background and she's a smart lady. And she's like, no, okay, I'll trust you. And I said, Mom, you got to do it for a minimum of 6 months. You got it because we're rebuilding your body from the cells up and you have to give it time, minimum of 6 months. She's like, okay, that's fine. Your dad is just going to hate it. Like my dad's such a miser. And she's like, but I don't care. I'm just going to do it. I'm like, okay. So that was in November. Fast forward to February. I'm driving home from work. It's been about 4 weeks ago. I'm talking to my mom on the phone. Didn't ask her about it. I saw my mom at Christmas time. And I asked her, hey, so it's been a month. Have you noticed anything? Well, no, not really. I'm like, keep taking it, Mom. She's like, okay. And so fast forward to February. So we're about 4 months in. And I called her up to see how she was doing on my way home from work. And we're talking. I didn't bring it up. She said, hey, I wanted to tell you, like, for the first time in, like, I don't know, 20 years, my fingernails are not splitting and flaking into the quick of my nails, into that nail bed, right? She's had to wear gel nail polish just to protect her nails because they would flake and peel. Like, they're horrible. And she's tried everything. Her thyroid, she's on thyroid medicine. She's got all the B vitamins that biotin. She's tried everything. Nothing has helped her fingernails. And she said, my fingernails are growing out normal. Like that hasn't happened in over 20 plus years. I said, Mom, that's the Protandim and the collagen. She's like, yeah, I know. And her x-rays have come back. She doesn't have a non-union. Everything's healed up. Now I'm hoping that she has super thin hair now. She never used to, but it's super thin. I'm hoping that her hair is going to start to improve with the collagen and the Protandim. And I think that it
We
will.
have a hair care system, Chrissy. We'll talk.
I know. I guarantee she won't put any more money into this. But this is coming from my mother, who is a skeptic, right? a
Yep.
non-believer, and she's the one who said to me, "Look what's happening."
So cool.
She's noticing it, right?
Yes.
So
Oh my gosh.
I didn't. Yeah,
Thank you.
I'll stop
Amazing.
talking now.
Oh,
Amazing.
beautiful story. Thank you.
Yeah, she has to wash her hair with something. Yeah, we'll figure it out.
I
Don't
know she does, and it may be that I just like give it to her for like Christmas or
Yes.
Mother's Day or
Yep.
something.
We'll
It's
get, yeah,
super
we'll,
cheap
we'll,
too.
we'll talk
That
about
one
it. 'cause it really
actually
works.
is. That one actually is pretty cheap.
It
Is
is.
it?
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. And yeah, we can talk about it. We won't take any more time.
Okay.
Thank you so
So
much.
does anybody have questions? I'd love to just, if you've got something that you'd like to have answered, I'm happy to answer it.
I think you filled our brains with
Okay,
Yes,
so
good.
much good
absolutely.
stuff.
So good. So good. We
All
are
the
And
we are so fortunate and blessed that we have all been introduced to this and that we all are putting it in our bodies. And we've all helped so many people. So yes,
Well,
we just continue to do so.
you guys are making me wanna. I haven't started it yet.
Well, there you
So
go.
I'm the only one that hasn't started it yet. But anyway, I have questions for you, Chrissy, but I know it's late, so I'll be in touch.
Patty, why don't you give me a call? Like, let's set up a time we can just call. We can
I would
chat.
love that.
It'll have
Yeah.
to be in the evenings after work. And
Okay.
I do mean it. Like, if you want to set up a time to just have a private chat with me, like, I'm happy to do that.
Oh, I love it. I know. Yeah,
Yeah.
Michelle says I know a lot of mothers that are taking
Mhm.
it during lactation, and I'm not concerned with the ingredients. My only thing, Michelle wants to get on it too on the call. That's my sister-in-law. My only concern was for me was everybody talks about this like deep sleep with the mind body, and I was worried about being too, sleepy in the night when I cared for her,
No, you won't be.
No,
my baby.
Mm-mm.
So
hell
that
No,
was
you
no.
my
won't be.
thing.
It's not a drugged out
Look,
feeling.
Michelle just said no, not at all. You won't
Okay,
be.
yeah.
You'll
No.
just sleep. You'll sleep when you sleep. You'll get sleep, but you won't. You will hear your children.
Right.
What
You're
I've
not
noticed
like,
about that is that when you wake up, if you wake up in the night, you're able to go back to sleep. Your brain doesn't keep going
Yes.
when you wake up.
Yes.
That's because
oh,
of all
gotcha.
of the GABA.
That's the most amazing.
Oh, that sounds so good. And
Yeah.
anxiety. Oh my gosh. Can I give
Well,
it to my kids? All right. Thanks, guys.
thank
Who's
you guys.
Samsung? Who's the Samsung? I'm just curious.
That's
Michelle.
Oh,
Oh,
Michelle, you're the Samsung. Oh, okay.
well, she's
I'm
on
pretty
like
sure.
No, she's not.
Uh,
She's not.
She's got her own square.
Oh,
There's
No,
somebody that
I think that was oh my goodness, I can't
oh,
think
I
of her
see.
name.
Samsung SM9.
Uh
Sounds like, looks like.
the blonde haired lady, she was
it's
talking about
not
her mom
Karen.
who's 94.
Oh, Lisa
I think
Barat.
it was Lisa. Yes,
Oh,
Lisa. I think
okay.
it was
Okay,
Lisa.
thank you.
Because when
Okay.
Lisa was talking, I saw the Samsung under her name.
Yeah,
It
There
was
she
there
is.
she
Lisa.
is. It's
There
Okay.
she is.
Lisa.
Thank
There she is.
you. Thanks. I just want to make sure we didn't miss anybody. Oh my gosh, this was so good. Thank you. Thank
thanks
you,
That was
everybody.
Gloria.
great.
Thank you,
No,
Chrissy.
I'm going to do
Thank
my
you,
blood
Katie.
work first, though. I'm going to
Thank you,
definitely
everybody.
do that. Thank you so
Do
much.
baseline. Do baseline, and then you want to do it again at like the 3 to 6. I would say, like, for me, I'm doing it at 3 months, but
Okay.
because
I got to
insurance
get
will
the
pay for it
VA.
every 3 months.
I'm going to message the VA about it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Get them
Thank
to
you
do
so
their.
much, everybody.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Great call.
Good night. Great
Yes, I'm
meeting.
going to.
Thanks,
Good
ladies.
night.
Bye bye.
Glad to see you.